Welcome back. We got another episode of Let 'Em Ride for you. We have a huge 5-game WNBA slate for Wednesday, July 10th. We're going to break down and analyze each of those games, and I'll talk about which way that I'm leaning as far as the points and the spread. And then any plays that I put in for these games, I will have listed down below in the pinned comment. So don't forget to check back in. That way you don't miss out on any of those. And then we will recap our picks from Tuesday, along with the picks here in this Wednesday video on our Thursday video, as the Tuesday game between the Lynx and the Sparks has not tipped off yet. It tips off at 10. Recording this one a little bit early to get it out to you guys, as the first game on Wednesday does start at 11 a.m. So let's dive into the picks for Wednesday. Our first game, we have the New York Liberty taking on the Connecticut Sun. The Liberty are 2-point favorites with a over-under sitting at 157. At the midway point of the season, these two sit at the top of the standings. They're tied with identical records of 17-4. This is the second straight on the road for New York, who is 7-3 straight up and 6-4 against the spread on the road this year. They're coming in off of a loss to the Fever, and that's a game that they led by 11 with just under 9 minutes to play before being outscored 28-12 the rest of the way for a 5-point defeat. They will have a one-day rest advantage over Connecticut, but the Sun have had no travel in between action or after this one, with this being the second game of a 3-game homestand. Connecticut has won 3 straight and 4 of their last 5. They last beat the Dream at home by 13 on Sunday. These two have met twice on the year now, with the Liberty winning both times on the road in Connecticut, once early in May by 3 points and then once in early June by 3. These are the only 2 losses at home on the year for the Sun. The only difference in these teams now and then is that the Liberty now have Courtney Vandersloot back in the mix, as she missed that last meeting in June. The Liberty are hitting the second most above the break threes and the most threes overall per game over the course of the year. The Sun give up the fewest above the break threes and at the second lowest shooting percentage. The Liberty are shooting the highest percentage from the restricted area and hitting the third most shots from the paint outside of that restricted area at the second highest shooting percentage. The Sun are allowing the 4th most makes at the 4th highest shooting percentage from the restricted area, but the 3rd fewest makes at the 3rd lowest shooting percentage from outside the restricted area in the paint. The Sun themselves, they make the 3rd most shots from the restricted area, but they hit at only 58%. That's the 3rd lowest shooting percentage in the W. They attempt and make the 2nd fewest threes in the league. They instead play from inside, and they create a lot of scoring opportunities off of forced turnovers. They are 2nd in points scored off of turnovers. The problem for them here is New York gives up the 3rd fewest turnovers and the 4th fewest points off of those turnovers. And then New York is 5th in opponents' points scored from the paint. The Sun are 4th in offensive rebounds. They are 1st in second chance points, but the Liberty give up the 4th fewest offensive rebounds and the fewest second chance points. The Sun attempt the most free throws per game, but they hit at the 4th lowest shooting percentage. And the Liberty commit the lowest number of fouls per game, leading to the fewest free throw attempts for their opponents as well. The Sun are only 7th in both effective field goal and true shooting percentage, while the Liberty rank 1st and 2nd respectively in those categories. This is a double revenge game for the Sun, they're at home, but the Liberty have the rest advantage. They have a solid defense and the much better offense here. So I'll lay the points with New York here, and I actually caught this one early myself with them laying just 1.5. So I'm already on that one there. I put that bet in. The Liberty are in a bounce back spot here themselves after giving up that late lead to the Fever and failing to close that one out. I just think they bounce back strong here. This is one of the best teams, if not the best team in the W this year. And I think we see that. Connecticut does have a strong defense, like we've said countless times in multiple videos. One of the best, if not the best defense in the W. But this Liberty offense is a force to be reckoned with. There's so much talent on that side of the ball. I just don't think Connecticut is going to be able to keep up with them in this one. And they have not been able to for the first 2 meetings in this between these two head-to-head on the year. Then for the total, these two, they just couldn't contrast in style of play anymore, as the Sun play that grinding halt style of play, and the Liberty are the 2nd highest scoring team in the W. The thing about Connecticut is they will slow you down no matter what. They are going to make you play to their pace. New York only put up 82 points in each win over the Sun this year. Both of those games did land slightly over this number, though. And this is the lowest total that these two have been given so far head-to-head on the year, so I'll slightly lean over on this one. For our next game, we have the Atlanta Dream taking on the Chicago Sky, and the Sky are laying 6 with the over-under sitting at 157.5. Both of these teams come in with equal rest, with Atlanta on the last game of a 3-game road trip, and Chicago returning home for the first game after a 3-game road trip of their own. The Dream are missing Ryan Howard and Jordan Canada until after the Olympics, and both Aerial Powers and Cheyenne Parker-Tyus are listed as day-to-day now as well. The Sky are without Elizabeth Williams for the rest of the year, but they have a clean slate otherwise. Atlanta has lost now 4 straight and 8 of their last 10 to sit at 7-13 straight up and 9-11 against the spread. The Sky won 2 of 3 on the road leading into this one, beating both the Storm and this Dream team last week, but that version of the Dream was only down Ryan Howard. Reese and Carter, they lead the way for Chicago. Angel is on an absolute tear with 13 straight double-doubles, and Kennedy is averaging 23 points per game in her last 5. She's been explosive off the dribble this year, finding lanes to the basket for easy bunnies, and hitting from the mid-range consistently as well. The Dream have held opponents to the 4th lowest made field goals from the mid-range, however, at the 5th lowest shooting percentage so far this year, and while middle of the pack in terms of allowing points in the paint. They are 2nd in fast break points scored against, and Chicago loves to get out and run. They are 1st in the W, so this definitely is a good look for Atlanta. The Sky remains superior on the offensive glass. They rank 1st, and they are 4th in second chance points while giving up the 2nd most second chance points. The Dream give up the 3rd fewest offensive boards and the 3rd fewest second chance points as well. All in all, this one depends, for me, the availability of Powers and Parker-Tyus. So while I don't know if either of them playing provides Atlanta enough punch to pull out a victory here in Chicago, I do think it provides them enough to keep this within 3 possessions and cover. If they don't play, I don't know where Atlanta finds the depth to contend with Chicago for 40 minutes. Could see them falling behind late and failing to cover. So like I said, it really just kind of depends for me on who's in and who's out. For the total, when Chicago has played teams in the bottom 6 defensively, they have averaged just over 81 points per game. The Dream are the worst scoring offense in the W, but they do score slightly more on the road at 78 points per game. And both teams are giving up an average of 81 points per game, so I'm going to slightly lean over. The Sky and the Dream both have hit the over in 2 of their last 3, and they have in their last 2 head-to-head meetings as well from this season, clearing this number both times. In our next game, we have the Washington Mystics taking on the Indiana Fever. The Fever are laying 6 with the over-under sitting at 168. Now, although each of these teams will come in with equal rest, the Mystics are on the last game of a 4-game road trip. They beat the Sparks to begin that trip, followed by losses to the Aces and then the Lynx in their last outing. Washington was only able to muster 67 points in that one, and they shot only 25% from deep. And that's where they hang their hat on, is the 3-point shooting. The Fever have won 2 of their last 3. They're coming in off of a huge win over the top team in the W in the Liberty. And we talked about that earlier in the Liberty Sun preview. Indiana did bounce back from a 11-point deficit to win that one with a 28-12 run en route to a 5-point victory. Washington will be without Shakira Austin and Brittany Sykes and Carly Samuelson, but they will get Stephanie Dawson back for this one. And that's going to be a huge lift. The Fever will be without Tammy Fogg-Bentley for this one. The Mystics have lost 4 of their last 5 straight up, but they have covered in 4 of their last 5. They're making the 4th most threes, and they're shooting them at the 2nd highest shooting percentage in the W. They are also hitting the above the break 3 at the 2nd highest shooting percentage and making the 3rd most. The Mystics rely heavier on the 3 ball than any team in the league. Only 47% of their points scored are from 2-point field goals. That's last in the W. 37% of their points come from 3s. That's first. The Fever are allowing the 3rd most above the break 3s and the 4th most 3s altogether. Indiana is making the 4th most shots from the restricted area, and they're scoring the 5th most points from the paint, but the Mystics only give up 32 points per game from the paint. That's the fewest in the W this season. The Fever in their last 5 are rated 7th offensively, 8th defensively, with a net rating of negative 5.1, which puts them at 7th, while the Mystics are ranked 9th offensively, 10th defensively, with a negative 10.2 net rating. That's second to last in the W. Although they have been on the road for a little over a week, I like the Mystics to cover here. I might be crazy. But the Fever, they're in that potential letdown spot now after that huge come-from-behind victory over New York. They started the season 0-4 at home, and they've won 5 straight. But the Mystics have been covering machines this year. They've covered in 10 of their last 12. So I like them with the points here. I'm going to lean over for the total with the perimeter shooting of both teams, and then just the inconsistencies of each defense in mind. I like the over here. Really, I don't have too strong of an opinion on this one, though, and I don't think that I'll end up running to the window on a total for this game. Next up, we have the Las Vegas Aces taking on the Seattle Storm. The Aces are laying 4.5, and we have an over-under sitting at 173.5. This is going to be the 7th straight home game for Seattle. They're on a 9-game homestand right now. They've gone 5-1, both straight up into the number so far on that homestand. They beat the Sky in their last one by 13 after being upset 2 days prior by Chicago. Now, the Aces have won 7 of 8 since the return of point guard Chelsea Gray. They're coming off of a 19-point win over Dallas on Sunday. They're winning by an average of just under 15 points per win in this time since Chelsea Gray has returned. And they're scoring a league-best 93 points per game in that time as well. Las Vegas has been the best team in the W since she's been back. They're ranking first in offensive rating, they're third defensively, and they're first in net rating with a score that's 5 points higher than the second-place Liberty. The Storm, they've been pretty good over their last 8 games as well, however. They're sitting at third offensively, second defensively with a net rating of 9.3. That's third in the W. Both of these teams also have a great low post presence, but only one of them has A'ja Wilson. She's been a top candidate for MVP all season, if not the top candidate, averaging 27 points per game and 10 rebounds a game with just under 2 steals and just under 3 blocks. The Aces shoot the highest percentage from the restricted area and from outside of the restricted area in the paint. They make the second most threes from the left corner. They make the most threes from the right corner, and they're hitting the above the break three at a 35% shooting clip, and that's good for third in the W. The Storm make the second most shots in the paint outside of the restricted area, and they shoot at the third highest percentage from inside of the restricted area. Seattle shoots the lowest percentage in the W from deep, however. They rely heavily on low post play, scoring 41 points per game in the paint, second most in the W. But the Aces are holding opponents to just 33 points per game. That's the second fewest in the W. Seattle is scoring the third most points off turnovers, and they lead the league in steals and blocks, and that creates a lot of these opportunities. But the Aces aren't going to give you a lot of those opportunities because they have the fewest turnovers in the league and the fewest points scored off of those turnovers. The Aces have won the previous 2 meetings this year between these 2 teams. They did so by double digits. So I'm going to lean Vegas here to get it done again for a 3rd time in a row and cover this 5-point line. I know it's a double revenge spot for the Storm. This Aces team is superb, man. I think that they're just a tier above Seattle. For the total, with the Aces scoring the way that they are and playing at the pace that they are playing, I'd be inclined to take a look at the over most nights. This number is high, but it's going down from what it initially opened at, so I'll slightly lean over here. But I would look at Vegas' team total over, I think, before the full game. It's at 88.5 currently, and Vegas has hit this number 6 out of their last 10, and they landed on the hook 2 of the times that they didn't hit it. Seattle has a top 3 defense, however, so this would be something that we looked at with cautious. But Vegas did just put 94 points on them in their last meeting. So it's definitely something that I'm going to have an eye on. And for our last game on the slate, we have the Dallas Wings taking on the Phoenix Mercury. The Mercury are laying 7.5, and the over-under is sitting at 174. The Wings are playing their 2nd straight on the road before returning home for their last 2 games before the Olympic break. They just lost to the Aces in Vegas by 19 in their last game on Sunday. The Mercury are back home after 2 straight on the road, but they will be right back on the road for 3 more after this one, and that's right before the Olympic break. So situationally, I like this spot for Dallas more. Phoenix will be without Taurasi and Charisma Osborne for this one, while the Wings will still be down Sabali, Jaylen Brown, and Maddie Segrest. These 2 did just meet last Wednesday with the Mercury dropping 104 on Dallas in Dallas and an 8-point win, and Kalia Copper had another huge game against Dallas, scoring 34 in this one. She's averaged 31 points per game against the Wings through 3 games this year. We were able to catch her at over 20.5 on her points last time these 2 met, but the books have adjusted. They have her at 22.5 right now, which honestly I still like, and I can see myself playing, especially with Taurasi out. The Wings have the 2nd worst defense in the W. They are 8th offensively and have the worst net rating. They've made the 2nd most shots per game from the restricted area this year, and they're scoring just under 50% of their points from the paint, while the Mercury are allowing opponents to hit from there at a 68% rate, which is 2nd in the league, but they're only giving up 10 makes per game, and that's the 2nd lowest in the league. The Mercury are giving up the most above the break threes and the 2nd highest shooting percentage from there, but this is another area that Dallas just isn't equipped to take advantage of, as they hit the 2nd fewest at the 2nd lowest shooting percentage. The Mercury, on the other hand, they rely heavily on perimeter play, and when they are hitting their shots, they are tough to defend. The Mercury are making the 4th most above the break threes, while attempting the second most, but they're only hitting them at a 33% rate, and that's 6th in the W. The Wings have been decent at times defending against the three, giving up the 5th fewest above the break threes, but they are allowing opponents to hit at a 35% rate from downtown overall. And they're giving up a second to worst 45% overall shooting percentage, along with the most made field goals per game. Dallas has also been sloppy with the ball all year. They give up the most turnovers, and they are giving up the most points off of turnovers as well. So I like Phoenix here for the win. I'll lean them to cover, although I do worry about a backdoor cover with Dallas here. So for the total, though, I'd lean over. But I'm hesitant with any game featuring this inconsistent Dallas offense. So with their horrid defense, it makes sense to look at just the Phoenix team total over 90.5 and just isolate that. But these two teams did crush this total last week. They landed at 200 in a 104-96 game. And I do think that we could see another high-scoring matchup here in this one. So that's just about going to wrap it up here for another episode of Let 'Em Ride. But before we get out of here today, let's recap what we went over in today's video. That way we can talk about which way we're leaning for these games right here. Right now I'm looking at the Mystics plus the 6. I got my eyes on the Aces laying 4.5. And I'm looking at the Mercury team total over 90.5. And I got my eye on Kalia Copper over 22.5 points as well. Now those are all just leans. The one play that I do have official that's already in is the Liberty laying 1.5. The rest of those plays, like I said, are just leans. But if I make them official, or if I find anything else that I like before tip-off, I will throw all that down into the pinned comment down below. So be sure you check back in. That way you can see if you'd like to ride along with me. Maybe you check back in and you're like, bro, all those picks are trash. I'm going to go ahead and do the opposite. Hey, whatever you decide to do, go ahead and throw them down in the comments. That way we can talk about it. I love to see what you guys cook up. Some of you guys really are in there cooking up some bangers, man, and I love to see it. Hey, if you guys like the content today, you like the information, found it helpful or useful in any kind of way, please don't forget to smash that like button down there. It's definitely very helpful. And hit subscribe if you have not already. That way you do not miss out on any of the content that we're dropping daily. And if you can hit share, I definitely appreciate it. So that's going to wrap it up here. I hope you guys have a great night. Make a bag out there today. Bet responsibly, and I'll see you on the next video.